The city that never sleeps was drenched. Water glistened on the cracked tar of a narrow street. Rickshaws honked. Vendors yelled over the downpour. The traffic crawled like an exhausted animal through the rain. And then, a scooter. A man balancing its fragile grip on the road. A woman behind him, one hand on his shoulder, the other shielding her toddler's face from the wind. A schoolboy squeezed in front, arms clinging to the handlebars, eyes wide with trust. 4 lives, 1 vehicle, a puddle, a skid, a scream, metal against metal, and then silence. A silence that Mumbai rarely hears. Not far away, in an air-conditioned office, a newspaper landed on a teak desk, the ink still wet. The headline, "Family of 4 injured in scooter crash, infant critical." The man who read it didn't speak. He didn't flinch. But something inside him shifted. A quiet, invisible quake. The kind that doesn't break buildings, but builds resolve. Because that moment would haunt him forever. The man, Ratan Tata. Born on a humid December morning in 1937, in the city of Bombay, now Mumbai, Ratan Tata came into the world carrying the weight of 2 lineages. His father, Tata, was adopted into the Tata family by Lady Navajbai, the widow of Sir Ratan Tata. His mother, Suni Tata, came from the family of Hormushi Tata. Though both shared the surname, their paths had been different, and so were their fates. When Ratan was just 10, his parents separated. So Ratan was entrusted to the care of his grandmother, Navajbai, a woman whose lullabies carried more weight than any ledger. She didn't spoil him with wealth. She raised him with discipline. In 1955, he boarded a ship for America. Stanford University's gleaming campus promised a future in architecture designing spaces that inspire dignity. But halfway through his studies, a quiet disillusionment took hold. Lecture halls felt hollow. Drawing boards seemed divorced from India's urgent needs, so he dropped out. Not in protest, not in scandal, but in search of purpose. He returned to Bombay, diploma in hand from Cornell, a degree in structural engineering. But more importantly, a question burned within. How can design serve the many, not the few? A heart broken, a vision forged. Back home, amidst board meetings and balance sheets, he encountered personal heartbreak. A young love, kindled in the corridors of Tata Industries, flickered out. The loss left a bruise on his spirit, deepening his empathy for the wounded. Those months of solitude taught him a lesson. When the heart cracks, it becomes more porous-able to feel the pain of others. And so, in the privacy of his Mumbai flat, Ratan Tata sketched not skyscrapers, but kitchens for low-income housing, schools for tribal children, clinics that could be built for a fraction of the cost. Have you ever felt your own heartbreak steer you towards serving someone else? Unlike the flamboyant industrialists of his era, Ratan never sought limelight. He refused a chauffeured Rolls-Royce. He walked the corridors of his own factories in simple khadi. When cameras flashed, his response was a slight nod, never a posed smile. Yet every quiet gesture carried weight. Handwritten thank you notes to apprentices, unannounced visits to remote villages after floods, funding scholarships under pseudonyms, so students believed fate not fortune had smiled upon them. In 2000, he publicly announced that 66% of Tata sons would transfer to charitable trusts, yet he never celebrated the gift. He simply let the world discover it on its own. Let's go back to that moment, that family, that rainy street in Mumbai. Ratan Tata couldn't shake the image, 4 people on a scooter, no helmets, nowhere to go but forward. So he asked a question no Indian industrialist had dared to ask before. Can we build a car that's safer than a scooter and affordable for every family? Not for luxury, not for showrooms, but for safety, for dignity. That was the dream. They called it the Nano, a Eklak car. Less than the price of a smartphone today, compact, clever, and in theory, revolutionary. But here's what most people missed. This wasn't an engineering exercise. It was an act of empathy, disguised as innovation. In a quiet Tata Motors design room in Pune, engineers were told, Build it cheap, but don't make it feel cheap. Build it small, but don't take away space. Build it fast, but never compromise safety. But while the dream was pure, the world wasn't ready. Before the launch, the Nano made headlines around the globe. The world's cheapest car, India's auto revolution. Can Tata disrupt the auto giants? Everyone watched, but they were watching the wrong thing. They saw price. They missed purpose. They saw a gimmick. They missed a gift. If you tried to build something for the people, and the people mocked it, would you still believe in it? This wasn't the first time he tried to make life easier for the underdog. Years before the Nano, he pushed for water filters for villages, designed efficient cook stoves, and funded rural housing. Years later, he would invest in India's most affordable cancer hospitals, offering world-class treatment at the cost of a train ticket. So no, the Nano wasn't an outlier. It was a continuation. It wasn't a product. It was a philosophy. Yet despite its noble origins, the Nano began to unravel. People hesitated, not because it failed in function, but because of perception. They didn't want to own the cheapest car. They wanted to own pride. And somehow, in a twist of cruel irony, the very affordability that made the Nano noble made it unwanted. Tata didn't push back. He didn't argue with the market. He didn't lash out at the critics. He simply stood by his decision and let the story unfold. Some say he failed, but maybe, just maybe, he was planting a seed the world wasn't ready to water. The Nano's impact didn't end at its sales chart. It ignited a conversation about road safety for families, about alternatives to two-wheelers, about dignity beyond income brackets. Car companies took note, two-wheeler users paused, and in homes across India, parents asked for seatbelts, not speed. That was victory. Quiet, invisible, real. But revolutions don't always roar. Sometimes they wither. Sometimes the world doesn't understand what was given until it's gone. Next, we'll explore what happened when the Nano was mocked and why Ratan Tata let it fall without a fight.
Despite what the critics said, despite what our antagonists did, we pursued our vision to give India an affordable people's car that had not been produced anywhere in the world. In fact, a car that most people said could not be manufactured for that kind of price. But we never took our eyes off our goal. Today we will present what a young group of engineers and designers.
India, a country of dreams, but also of judgments, where families sacrifice everything to send a child abroad, then quietly judge the neighbor who buys a small car. In that culture where pride is parked in the driveway, the Nano was misread, not as an innovation, but as an admission, a declaration of poverty. And so, it gathered dust. Around the same time, Nano was being ridiculed in India. Another story was unfolding, a story across the oceans. Jaguar, Land Rover, two icons, once majestic, now bankrupt. Abandoned by Ford, no one dared touch them. Not in a recession, not with such losses. But Ratan Tata did, without noise, without a press circus. He flew to the UK, met workers, walked their plants, listened, and then he bought both companies. The world gasped. The man who built the cheapest car had just saved two of the world's most luxurious brands. And what did he do next? Nothing. No speeches, no boasting, no branding it the Tata turnaround. He let the results speak. Today, Jaguar Land Rover contributes billions to Tata's global empire. Thousands of jobs were saved. The British government thanked him. Meanwhile, in India, many still saw only the Nano. But did it really fail? Let's reframe the question. Did the Nano sell millions? Did it make money? Did it transform India's roads? Not the way it was meant to, but it started something. Conversations about compact car design, debates on road safety for two-wheelers, a mindset shift in the auto industry. And quietly, families who once risked 4 lives on a scooter bought second-hand Nanos, not for pride, but for protection. They didn't post about it, but they drove home safe. That was enough. Why he let it fail and what that really means. Here's the truth no business school teaches. Ratan Tata could have saved the Nano. Aggressive marketing, celebrity endorsements, rebranding it with chrome and colors. But he chose not to, because that would betray the very soul of it. It wasn't built to be trendy. It was built to be truthful. And when truth is rejected, he didn't force it. He let it go with dignity, because in Ratan Tata's world, it's better to be misunderstood with integrity than to be celebrated with compromise. So where did all that energy go? If not to sales, if not to fame, then where? When the Nano's fate seemed sealed, many thought the story ended there. But what they didn't see were the echoes. The Nano raised questions, hard ones. Why isn't safety a right for the poor? Why do we call dignity a luxury? Why should the shape of a car determine a human being's worth? And those questions did something. They pushed the auto industry. They inspired new startups. They made policymakers look again at the streets they had ignored. Before Nano, two-wheelers were simply normal. 3 people, sometimes 4, on a single scooter. No seatbelts, no helmets, no laws that truly protected them. But after Nano, a quiet shift began. Suddenly, safety wasn't just a word in government ads. It was dinner table conversation. Even those who mocked the car began demanding airbags in budget models. Suddenly, seatbelts weren't optional. Even second-hand cars became safer. The industry didn't thank Ratan Tata, but they followed him. Because somewhere deep down, they knew he had gone first. He had done what they didn't dare. Give the poor the kind of safety once reserved for the rich. Long before Nano, Ratan Tata was already building quietly. And long after, he never stopped. Let's walk into that world, the world beyond headlines. In cancer hospitals, a new kind of hope. In the small town of Varanasi, a father walks in with his son. The child has leukemia, but there's no panic, because this hospital world-class charges a fraction of the cost. This is the Tata Trust Cancer Grid, not one hospital, not 2, but a network spread across India's forgotten regions. Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, where cancer used to mean death. Now it means a fighting chance. He built schools, but never schools of walls. He built spaces where poor students could touch machines, write code, design futures. The Tata Institute of Social Sciences, producing visionaries in governance, climate, and rural justice. Tata Medical Center, pioneering low-cost, high-tech treatments. Tata Trust's innovation labs, incubating startups working on clean water, sanitation, and renewable energy. And still, no spotlights, no branding parades, just progress. He could have retired rich. He could have spent his years collecting awards. Instead, he started funding people. A startup delivering fuel to remote villages in electric vehicles. Repos Energy, an early stake in Paytm long before digital wallets became normal. A quiet investment in Air Asia India to make air travel more accessible. What is success? Is it numbers, applause, the size of your tower, or the silence of your soul? If success is attention, Ratan Tata failed. If success is noise, he never even tried. But if success is integrity, if it's the way strangers feel safer because of you, if it's a child living because you built something quietly, then maybe he succeeded more than most ever will. He gave India and the world a new definition of leadership, not one that shouts, one that listens. In a boardroom, his name sits on the wall. But in the heart of a cancer patient in Assam, in the tools of a rural startup in Pune, in the laughter of a girl safely belted inside a compact car, his legacy lives.